All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Tuesday, May 16th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. And Clayton, we had a huge weekend at the box office, a comeback story of sorts for Guardians of the Galaxy. And, this is such a big deal. I don't think we were going to be able to cover this alone. So we brought in a heavy hitter in here for the first time ever. He is the host of Midnight Movie Talk. He is one of the fastest rising movie critic, box office analyst stars on YouTube. Erick Weber is here. Erick, thanks for joining us on the BO Boys.
Absolute pleasure, and there's so much to talk about. I mean, we were just doing the pre-show here, and there's so many things going on, and this summer is shaping up to be super strong. And we're going to get to Fast X in a minute, but I'm just really encouraged by where we're headed here theatrically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean we're gonna quickly run through this top five and then get into it. But I think this Guardians hold that we're about to hear right now is a great sign for the state of theatrical. So Clayton, before we get started, could you give us a plow of the top five from the weekend of Friday, May 12th? Was it?
Yep, May
Friday, May
12th.
12th. There we go.
Number one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 made $62 million, down only 48%. It is now at $214.7 million in its second weekend. Number two, the Super Mario Brothers movie made $12.6 million, down 32%. It lost 109 theaters. It's at $535.5 million in its sixth frame. Number three, a newbie. Oh boy, Book Club, the next chapter, $6.6 million in its first weekend. Mother's Day weekend. Oh my goodness. Number four, Evil Dead Rise made $3.7 million, down only 37%. It lost 215 theaters. It's at $60.1 million in its fourth weekend. And number five, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Made $2.5 million, down 22%. It's hemorrhaging theaters, losing 978 theaters. It's at $16.4 million in its third frame. And I guess let's just go to six because we got a newbie. And we're going to talk about this because our guest has seen this movie. Hypnotic, distributed by Ketchup Entertainment. Let that sink in there. $2.4 million in its opening frame. That's your top six.
All right, so let's start at the top. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And listen, on this week, on our weekend preview episode last week, we were predicting the standard 60+% drop for this movie. And I've seen this film. I liked it. It's getting great reviews and audience scores, but nevertheless, we both thought this was going to drop about what all the Marvel movies do, about what all the number one openers do, which is at least 60%. This holds is incredible. So Erick, let's start with you. How did this happen and how surprising and encouraging is this incredible hold? A less than 50% drop for a number one Marvel film. This is incredible. What
It
is your
is.
take on it?
Yeah, typically you're looking at 60. I thought we were going to get 55. I thought we could get 55, somewhere in that range. But at 48, that speaks to, we talk so much about cinema score, right? People say no one pays attention to cinema score. Of course they don't. That's not why, no one knows what the grade is for Guardians. You and I do, and a few people, the listeners probably do. But an cinema score says that word of mouth is super strong. And this weekend proved exactly that a lot of people who decided to skip out on opening weekend that maybe are feeling some CBM fatigue, they said, I will go check this film out because the word of mouth was so strong on the film, and that's why we see it at minus 48.
Yeah, it really, listen, on this show, the last couple of weeks, especially since Quantumania, there's been all of the Marvel fatigue talk, Marvel's in decline. And listen, I don't think this movie solves those problems, but I think what it does show is people will still respond to one of these movies if they think it's going to be good and they think it's going to be different. And I still don't think this is going to solve the problem of having the Marvels come out and having Thunderbolts and having the Captain America that doesn't have Chris Evans in it. I think those problems are still there. But this weekend shows If people think a movie's going to be good and are told a movie's going to be good, they will see it, even if they are overall not as hyped on superhero movies as they were 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward because used to be everybody would just run out because it's Marvel. And now, like you said, there are those people that are reticent. They're going to say, hey, is this thing actually good? Because I sat through some stinkers in this last couple years. And so, again, the word of mouth was good, and we saw that in the numbers. So this is positive for Guardians. This is positive for Marvel right now. But again, like you said, Pat, this feels like a stay of execution to me more than anything, because that slate coming up, oh boy, that does
Yeah.
not look promising.
Yeah,
the
I
good
mean,
news
Eric,
is we
we've
have-
heard you talk about the Marvels. Give us your thoughts on where this bodes for the future of these Marvel movies.
Well, the good news is they have 6 months until the Marvels. We need time, right? I mean, that's what we look at. The best pop artists from my youth, and even today, like at Taylor Swift. What is she so good at? She comes out, does her thing, puts an album out, and then disappears for a while because
Yes.
you need time away to regenerate interest. And I think the 6 months is the best thing that the Marvels could have going for it, but that trailer just doesn't do much for me. I mean, it looks like Shazam all over again, and I had zero fun with Shazam 2, so I'm not looking forward to the film. I mean, this is a film that's still in trouble. I don't even know if we can tie them together, Guardians and Marvels. Sure, this helps, I think, with the hold being as strong as it is, and the film being strong and word of mouth. But ultimately, when we get to the Marvels, it will depend on how good the film is. Is it a great film? Is it a good film? Is it less than that? That'll determine how successful that film is. But right now, I wouldn't expect anything better than Shang-Chi. Those are the numbers I would look at for that film, and maybe even lower than that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be their first ever, like, legitimate bomb. I mean, it could be their Good Dinosaur.
Yeah. I think this weekend, this hold for Guardians is a huge win for James Gunn. I think, and it's a huge win for DC Films in a way, because this is the guy they're hinging supposedly the next 5 to 10 years of their slate on. And I think the Suicide Squad movie did a few years ago. That gets a pass. It's the COVID summer, blah, blah, blah. But if this Guardians movie would have underperformed, which it doesn't look like is gonna, I think that puts a big stain on the start of James Gunn as the head of DC Films. This doing well, I think, even though it's an MCU film, is great for DC. They needed this guy to come out of the gate and show he is, still at the top of his game.
Yeah. And though I do want to poo-poo this, because I know it's this drop is great. It's a very low drop. It's the best, I guess, drop post-COVID, as they say, for an MCU movie. But it did open significantly lower than the first two volumes, right? So we are looking at something where if this would have dropped this amount and it made 144 like Love and Thunder, then we're really talking something here.
Right.
But I mean, 118, pretty low, and it dropping, pretty low. I mean, that's fine, but it's not like, I don't think this is ticker tape parade, but I definitely think this is best case scenario for this movie.
Okay,
Right.
it's like 160 million behind Doctor Strange 2.
Right.
In the same point in the cycle. So that's exactly what you're discussing here, is that it's all relative, right? So this is still 160 million worldwide minus on this. That's not fantastic. But they got the best news. I guess the best way to spin this weekend for Marvel, and certainly for Disney, is they got the best they could possibly hope for with this hold.
Yes. I think the thing is, this could have been real bad. We could have been sitting here right now talking about a 68% drop. And at that point, you're full on starting to lower the casket for Marvel, and I think the casket has been pushed over, is not being lowered right now. We're waiting until the Marvels comes out to keep lowering the casket.
Yeah.
So it was huge, because this could have been a really bad news cycle for Marvel. And instead, you got the BO boys, you got Eric Weber talking about how it is, making some recent history, which is great for them.
And I got a fistful of dirt but I got nowhere to throw it yet. So I'm
Right,
just going to keep
right.
holding on to it.
Right. So one other, I think we got to say it, big winner right now. He's got the top 2 movies, and this guy, he gets a lot of whatever online. I don't want to say hate, but you got the star of the top 2 movies in the world right now in the Super Mario Brothers and Guardians of the Galaxy. Is this is the top Chris? Could we all agree right now, as far as movie stardom goes? This is
Oh,
the Chris.
and he kind of has been for a while now. It's just one of those things where people don't want to admit it, but like financially, box office wise, there's
Right.
no competition. Who's even in competition with him?
Right.
For the Chris's.
For the Chris's, yeah. But I mean, this is something you don't see very often, is that the same actor with the top 2 movies in the world multiple weekends in a row. And I think we got to give our propers there. So why don't we move on to the new movie that came out this weekend, Book Club: The Next Chapter. This is going to be, I would say, Book Club: The Last Chapter.
Yeah.
6.6.
Retitle this, rebrand this. This is a live, die, repeat situation. Just go on. Because this is how you're going to get people in the theater. This is the last one, ladies. We're doing it. Sorry. And then that'll be people will be like, oh, wait, this is the last one? I got to go. That's the only chance for this movie to make any sort of bones here.
Yeah. Have you seen this film, Eric?
No, I haven't. No, and I'm not going to. It's not. Listen, I suffered through 80 for Brady. That was enough for me. And they're so similar, right? I mean, it's the same audience. And I think that if you really want to answer the question, why did this film not do the numbers, not that it's ever going to open at like 40 million, but it didn't do well this weekend, because I think that you got to remember the older audiences don't go to the movie theaters very often, and they were just there a few months ago for 80 for Brady, so they'll go again maybe in 6 months. So if Book Club had come out like in September, it would do better, but I swear that it cannibalized, right? It took audience away. 80 for 80 absolutely took money away from Book Club too.
Yeah.
And then also, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret also had a very older female audience. So they were either tapped out or not interested enough in this. And I think the other thing, too, is that, like you said about the cannibalization of that, this is just another sort of like sitcom-y movie that they had seen a million times, and they didn't have the budget pricing that 80 for Brady had. If you would have done that sort of matinee style all day pricing for this movie, you probably would have seen an uptick, because you would have seen someone say, you know what, I wasn't going to go to the theater, but an $8 ticket, a $7 ticket, whatever it is, that's going to entice people.
Yeah. It definitely is a situation where, I mean, we've talked about this when the 80 for Brady trailer came out. The audience thought that was Book Club too.
Yeah.
And I think that this bears that to be true. People thought they already saw this movie. I think there's a percentage of the audience that thought this was a quick turnaround re-release of something they went to the theaters to see 3 months ago.
Well, you know what cost this movie millions? Is that first joke in that 80 for Brady trailer, where the one woman wrote the Gronk, what is that? The slash fiction or whatever it's called. That romance novel. They thought that was the book for the book club. And that's what cost this movie millions. Was one joke in a trailer.
Yes. Of a different movie.
Yeah.
I think that there's also the thing we keep underplaying with the original book club is that movie was based around them reading a very popular book at the time, which was what's the book that
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey, of course. And this book club movie does not have a similar phenomenon book that these older actresses are reading. And I think and that was right in the middle of the 50 Shades of Grey movie craze, or right at the tail of it. That was probably a huge reason why that movie overperformed as much as it did.
They should have been reading Harry's memoir.
Yes.
Or Crawdads. Why not? Crawdads Sing. That thing was a hit. Why not read that book?
Right. this movie didn't have that phenomenon book at the center of it. It just had the actresses who we thought were in the movie that came out 3 months ago.
Yep.
Is this a, we talked about the decline or the trouble that maybe comic book movies are in, or a little bit of a slump? Is this movie going to put a hurting on the sort of grandma movies genre? Do we think we're going to see any more Jane Fonda-esque comedies at the box office in the next few years? Or is this maybe put a pause on production for those types of movies?
No, you just got to space them out. I mean, it's really just all about it's too close to 80 for Brady. I mean, if you would have spaced this again, it is out September, October, we'd be talking about something that was a little bit better. But ultimately, right, everything changed COVID-wise when we had the windows shortened from 90 days to, God knows, 17 in some cases.
Right.
So a lot of people, especially older audiences, they don't want to leave the house. I mean, like my parents, great example. I tell them, hey, you got to go to the movie and see this or this. They go, we'll just wait till it's on streaming. They waited for Air. It was like, 45 days for Air.
Right.
So Book Club 2 will probably be on streaming in like a week and a half. So that's the problem with these shortened windows. Films like this are going to get destroyed by those tight windows. You need a longer window to, if anyone really wants to see the movie, they know they have to go to a movie theater to see it.
Right. Now, I've heard you talk about this a lot, Eric, on your shows, and I think they still haven't figured out what that new reality is. I mean, I don't think you could ever go back to, or anyone would want to go back to, 9 months from theatrical until we start to see it on pay-per-view, and then a year before it's on cable. But it does seem like there needs to be a harder window, or at least figuring out a way to keep people from expecting that they're going to see it so soon afterwards. There needs to be some kind of middle ground where it is not you're waiting a year before you could get it at home. But especially for a film like this, there definitely is the expectation, especially when it bombs, that I could see this in 3 weeks.
They just got to set it and say it's 45. I mean, split the difference. It was 90 before, make it 45. That's a month and a half, right? So at least that gives it the space it needs. It's still going to be difficult for these smaller films because after COVID, during COVID, these people sat at home and watched films like that at home. Everything was given to you there on the sofa. So to retrain the audience to come back to movie theaters to see things like Margaret, Book Club 2, films like that is going to be difficult without that lengthy window. And even with it, it's still going to be more difficult than it was. I mean, we saw it kind of suffering a lot of these adult dramas before COVID. Go back and look at Amazon Studios' first entry into the marketplace when they had those films that went theatrical, and none of them did well. It's just tough, and that's why we see the box office succeed or fail based on these huge tent poles largely. Occasionally we have something like Everything Everywhere that comes in and does well, but in general it's going to be these larger budgeted tent pole films that are going to keep the marketplace afloat.
What's also kind of interesting, if you notice with these older skewing films, is that as much as this is a demographic that has not changed their spending habits or the products they buy in years, right? Because you don't market to people over 45 or 55 because they already know what toothpaste they want. They already know what car they drive, things like that. Sequels tend to do worse with this group, where you got the Exotic Marigold Hotel 2, which didn't do well. You have the Downton Abbey sequel that didn't do well. You have this now doing well, not doing well. So it's weird that this group is like, I seen it and I'm done. There's a novelty aspect to these movies. So I feel like even if you did space out Book Club 2 away from 80 for Brady, people would still think it's old news if they're still around to see it.
Well, the further you go, I go back to Downton Abbey, right? There's 3 of those now. I have not watched one, but the further you go for a niche film like that, especially an older audience skewing film, you're going to lose attrition, right? You're going to lose people that were already into before, and you're not going to get new people to come in because, I never saw Downton Abbey 1 or 2. So your audience is going to shrink. So, to your point, any sequel for adult skewing film is going to have a harder time because people are like, I didn't see the first one. I mean, I remember people telling me that about John Wick 4, and that wasn't even, older skewing film. I didn't see the other John Wicks. I'm like, doesn't matter. Go see John Wick 4. So that's going to be a problem and a real issue for studios getting people to join into a film when they didn't even see the first one or two.
Yeah.
Right. And with the superhero movies, even if you've missed something, YouTube is filled with recap videos. Here's everything you need to know about Doctor Strange. You don't see as many of those for something like a book club, and maybe that is something that would be helpful, is more of a get inside the cinematic universe of a book club. Here's your primer, 10 things that you have to know about the character in book club. And then that'll open up the sequels to be a lot more accessible the way the superhero movies are.
That's a great lane
videos.
for.
I'm not doing them.
I was going to say that's a great lane for our YouTube, Pat. We should talk about that at the HQ.
Is book club catch-ups? Yeah,
yeah, stuff like that. Where are the girls from Palms now?
Right. And I mean, that could be a situation where the way to juice the box office for these is to start to do some crossovers. To have Jane Fonda play her characters from all three of these movies and just bring them all together. So we'll see, but I do agree. I think this is the end of the book club franchise, at least theatrically. They could always turn this into a streaming Netflix series soon. Number 4, Evil Dead Rise, continuing to do great. Let's move down to number 6, because this is a big get. We have an actual human being that we could talk to that has seen Hypnotic, which is rare. Not many people get to talk to someone who has seen Hypnotic. So this is a Robert Rodriguez movie starring Ben Affleck, who is in the middle of a comeback. Air did really well liked. He hit the podcast circuit. It's on Bill Simmons. Everyone loved it. Ben Affleck's on the way back, but then he has this weird thriller that he's starring in where William Fichtner, and I'm basing this off of seeing the trailer, is the villain. It feels like a movie that has been held over for about 30 years. So Eric, tell us about Hypnotic, your take on it. Does the box office feel right? This movie made $2.4 million. Based on having seen it, does that feel right to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1,000 per screen, so this is terrible. It's the worst opening for both these guys, Rodriguez and Affleck. And you think about Ben Affleck and how long his career's gone, and this is the worst. We knew it was going to do really bad, right? This is a film that was started by Solstice Studios, which, if you remember, did that Russell Crowe, what was that thing called?
Unhinged.
Unhinged. Yeah, so he did Unhinged, and that was one of the first movies back in theaters, as you know, after COVID. And then they put $65 million in Rodriguez's hands to make this film that's a mishmash of Memento, Inception, it's got Firestarter, and overall, it's the worst of all those films. Ben Affleck sleepwalks through the film. Direction looks like maybe worse than a television movie. It's just unimpressive across the board. So you knew it was dead, but $2 million for a 65. This is how you go out of business. Solstice Studios is no longer around because they did things like this. $65 million for this film that should have never been made at that budget. I mean, and also let's discuss this. Ben Affleck. I don't think he's a huge box office star. He's good as a component, right? As a supporting character, as we saw with Air, certainly the director of that film. But as a leading man, you can't tell me that Batman versus Superman made more money because it was Affleck. Maybe a slight bit, but it wasn't, he brought in half of the audience. He's not Tom Cruise. There's very few of those actors out there.
Right.
So I think you see it here, and he didn't do any promotion because he knew this thing was dead. He wanted to distance himself from it, and I don't blame him after seeing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he had such goodwill from Air, I think, too, that he didn't want to follow Air with a stinker. And I do think it's been forgotten. I mean, it's going to be forgotten because obviously it's going to go way, way further down the charts next week. People are going to be talking about Fast X, so he doesn't have to really worry about this hurting his career or his next comeback. It seems to be a guy who can have multiple comebacks. He's had so many, and he will have more it feels like.
Yeah, it's a it is true that when you look at Ben Affleck's career, even in his comebacks, there's not a lot of movies where he's the star and it's a big hit other than the ones that he directed.
Mm-hmm.
The Town and Argo were sort of the
yeah.
exception. Gone Girl, of course, is a big hit. He's a supporting actor.
Mm-hmm.
Even in his comebacks, there aren't Ben Affleck is the reason you're going to see this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a huge hit. And it's Hypnotic is just one of those movies that is just very interesting that it exists. I think most people became aware that it existed like 2 weeks ago, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you said, Clayton, it's not going to hurt him because people are just not going to know that it happened.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like Hollywood's not going to care because it's not like he just cost Universal Studios or Disney a bunch of money. Everyone who lost money on this is not in a position to greenlight a movie ever again anyway, so there's really no harm, no foul.
Nor should they have been, right? I mean, that's in this town, right? The new studio, they have to outbid the competition to get anybody to work for them, right? They're like, hey, we're this new studio. Well, we're going to have to outpay to get the services of a Ben Affleck, or in this case, Rodriguez. But I'm telling you, based on the script, based on all, these are the decisions that get you destroyed in Hollywood, and that's exactly what happened to Solstice Studios. And the same thing, listen,
he's going
Beau's
for
Afraid. I'm not going to do, but look, Beau's Afraid, $35 million for that film. It's absurd. I don't care if it's A24 or who it doesn't. You can't give these directors this kind of cash for films that are going to crater at the box office. It'll just destroy you. I don't understand the mindset of some of these executives. I really can't even get inside their heads.
So you don't like Beau is Afraid? Could we?
No.
That's okay? Just wanted to clarify that. Listen, anyone who follows Erick on Midnight Movie Talk, he's had episodes called "Is Beau is Afraid the worst film I've ever seen?" Is this a career killer? Those are episode titles. So I think you could glean from that you don't like the movie. I mean, I do think those are different cases. Solstice Studios is in a situation where they have to have a perfect batting average to survive because they're starting from nowhere. And you really got to go on an incredible hot streak to start a movie studio. I think with something like A24, that's a concerted effort to, all right, this one might not make anything, but we want to keep him in the family. And hopefully his next movie is the one that wins an Oscar or makes $80 million at the box office. But obviously Solstice Studios they should have just made Unhinged 2. Honestly, you just milk the Unhinged franchise until that well runs dry.
Now, going back to Beau really quick, do you think that anybody who liked his two previous movies will now not trust him after this one? Or do you think it'll just kind of be like, oh, that was a weird sort of, thing that was in his filmography now, but if he comes with a horror movie, I'm going to see it?
Oh, for sure. I think it's got to be another horror film. I mean, he can't do anything resembling Beau is Afraid.
Yeah.
Because this is a film, what is it, at 10, not even 10 million worldwide. So $35 million budget. And we all know that there is advertising, right? It's not, the typical, what is it, triple budget? It's not going to be that for this. They didn't put that much money into the marketing on it, but still, they've lost tens of millions of dollars on this film. And I think that whatever he does next, you have to rein the budget in, and you have to make it horror. Those are the two things that have to happen. Even if it's horror, you can't give him 35. You have to say, we've got to figure out a way to get this budget down, tighten it up, lean it out so that you don't have to be spending that much cash. Because, I mean, I'm not in A24's financials, but I'm just telling you, as somebody, if I had a bunch of cash, I wouldn't be giving this guy that much money again until he proved himself with at least one film to rehabilitate his image.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that I feel like we disagree with, is that I feel like they were like, we'll give you this one, and we know that it's not going to light up the box office, right?
Sure.
We hope that maybe, but we know that this won't. But your next one, like you said, your next one has to be a home run. It's got to build off of that goodwill that you had with those first two. And like Pat said, we want an Oscar nomination out of you. Like, I'm not saying they didn't sit him down, and have this in a fucking boardroom, and somebody's holding a phone book over his head about to whack him. But like, I do think there was a conversation here that was like that. It was like, we know you want to do this and we want to keep you, but you got to know there's no more Beau is Afraid after this. Not for a long time, unless you make us a lot of money.
Yeah, I listen. I have no problem with him being greenlit. Hey, here you go. It's just the budget. You just when you look at this script, you can't give that much money. And here's the thing: what was he going to do? What was Astor going to do? Was he going to run somewhere? Do you think Warner Brothers going to give him $35 million for that film? No, Neon wouldn't have that cash. He had nowhere to go. So I think that's the thing. It's not that I think Beau is Afraid should never have been made. It's just the budget to product. The disparity between those two things is a chasm that I just can't even fathom how they greenlit it at that price, because he had nowhere else to go with it. So yes, I understand that we're going to give you this, but now you got to give us that. But what was he going to do if they said no?
Right. All I got to say
is wouldn't have made Beau. Yeah.
The fact that we now have a recording of Eric Weber saying, "I don't believe that Beau is Afraid shouldn't have been made." That's all we needed. We got it.
That budget.
At that, well,
those words aren't as important.
Yeah. You got to stop. You got to stop a quote somewhere. I always say,
yeah.
Oh God.
Well, I'm glad we got that on the record. So let's talk just in general now a little bit about where we see how we feel about this summer, because we got you in here, Eric, so we're going to get your general thoughts. You've seen Fast X, and I've heard it's obviously not a review, but your episode where you talked about just general thoughts, it seems that you like it. The last Fast movie sort of underperformed, though. Again, that was summer 2021. It was the COVID summer, so you almost have to throw that out. But that is a franchise where you feel the momentum had stopped. People were talking about it in those terms. It peaked with the Fast 7 and the previous movies. Now that you've seen the film, do you feel like the momentum might be back? Do you have a positive feeling about where the audience is going to be for this new Fast and Furious movie?
After seeing it, it changed everything. I mean, before I was just like, this film's done. I mean, the Fast and Furious franchises, why are they even making 10? And then you watch the film, and I had a hell of a lot of fun with it. Way more entertaining than F9. I was not a fan of F9 at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Fierro in outer space and all that. This film doesn't have any of that. Now, granted, it's still the same old absurd stuff that's happening that's totally ridiculous, and you just roll your eyes. But it's not at that level where it's just beyond the pale. So I think that this film will do very well for word of mouth, because it delivers upon what people want from a fun summertime film. Turn the brain off and enjoy. And there's so many cameos and callbacks and all of this in the film. I was super impressed with a film that I really had no expectations for. So after seeing it, I'm going to raise my expectations substantially for this film as we go into summer, and it's only going to bode well for the rest of what's to come, assuming that it's as even half as good as Fast X, which I can't believe I'm saying right now.
Wow. What would you say, is there a value add in this movie? Is Momoa something that you think is going to really resonate, where audiences are going to say, I've seen a lot of these movies, but this has that something extra that's going to make me want to see this one? Is Momoa that? Is there something else in this film that you think is going to work as the sort of marketing plus one to the way The Rock was when they brought him in Fast 5?
Well, Momoa for sure. And he's lights out. He is really good in this film and perfect for what the franchise needed. I liken it to Gary Oldman in The Professional. That's essentially the version of the bad guy that he's playing in this film. It's the kind of thing that just rejuvenates and injects life back into the franchise. Momoa here. And then also, as you may or may not know, it's all over the place because Universal wants it out there. The Rock is back. Now, he's not in this film for okay, I'm not gonna no spoilers, but he's back, and
It
that
is
going to
purposely
help.
out there.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is 100%. It's purposely out there because they know that the tracking is lower here, so they're trying to get this thing revved up as we roll into the weekend. But you watch, these reviews are going to be a lot higher because if I'm hard as hell on films. And I'm telling you, when I came out, I was like, oh my God, I am shocked at how much fun I had with this film. And I think that's going to be the general reaction from the majority of people who watch it.
Yeah.
The Rock situation, I do think, is also mutual because The Rock needs a win right now.
Yes.
And this is a series that, he was franchise Viagra. He really injected a lot of energy into the series and people love him as that character.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is a mutually beneficial situation for both of them.
Yeah.
After Black Adam, 100%.
This has to work. I mean, listen, nothing has to work. The Rock is a giant star. He's going to get a lot of movies greenlit. But in some ways, this does have to work for him because he is really taken on the chin the last few years. Black Adam was a fiasco. The XFL is a fiasco. The Rock has a lot of, I think, perception issues. The fact that he's doing all these Netflix movies that nobody likes, Red Notice, Red One, come on. So he needs this to work. And it is amazing that The Rock is coming in and kissing the ring. After all the back and forth with him and Vin Diesel, it really shows the position he's in right now that he was willing to come in and get back into this franchise. And Clayton loves it because Clayton was always Team Vin.
I was Team Vin. Listen, I know that they're both insane egomaniacs. There is no doubt. There's no good guy in this.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something about Vin Diesel that I gravitated more towards than The Rock, because The Rock is just about moving product. Everything's a widget to The Rock. And Vin seemed to have some artistry to him. That was my take.
Right.
And now it's nice to, The Rock's back playing in Vin's backyard. And we're going to see how this works. I mean, if they can keep it together for this last film, for 11, and people are going to like this movie. From what you said, I was low on it. The previews don't make it look like anything special, but now I'm very excited. We're going to see it opening weekend anyway, but still, I'm very excited for it. But listen, this movie does well, and then 11, there's no telling how big that thing could be.
That's correct.
If The Rock is back for a full movie.
That's right. And that's exactly how you're going to feel when you get done with X. You're going to want to see 11. And for me, again, if you'd have said, I would say this tonight, a week ago, I say, you're insane. There's no way I would ever utter those words. And then, boom, you watch the film and you're like, I want to see Fast 11.
Right.
That's amazing.
So, and let's just quickly look ahead and get, Eric, I want to get your big picture thoughts on what you think the biggest hits are going to be this summer that we have coming up and a pick for a bomb. So when Clayton and I did our summer movie preview a few weeks ago, I think immediately we felt buyer's remorse. We were very high on The Flash. Is this going to be the biggest movie this summer? And I think the movie we both felt like we underplayed was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Neither of us had that in our top 5 of the summer of what the domestic earners going to be. Immediately felt like that was a mistake. So I know you're a big Tom Cruise guy, huge Maverick guy. Are you feeling like Dead Reckoning Part 1 is it's not going to do Maverick, but do you think that has a chance to be top 3 domestic of the summer?
I think I'm going to put it at number 1. Honestly,
wow.
I really am. I think it's bigger than Indy. Listen, I don't know about you guys. Whenever I watch the Indy trailer, the first one did nothing for me. The second one is better because they cut back on the CG, which the first one was just nonstop. I think that the film, that's going to be a film that depends on how great it is. If Indy is a great film, then it pushes it higher. If it's just good, it's going to falter more, right? It really needs to be not just good, but great. I feel like, and I think that Mission 7 is a little more protected. People will see it even if it's just good, but I think we're going to rise above that. I really think that's the film because of the Tom Cruise shine off of Maverick And that trailer's been playing since back at Maverick. People, every time that trailer plays in front of a movie, and I've been in how many movies since that thing debuted, the trailer, everyone always reacts to that. And so I'm telling you, if I had to bet on one film this summer, it is Mission 7.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Mermaid? Now, it is one of those like the four huge 90s movies, or maybe that was late 80s, but that resurgence of Disney animation back then that everybody kind of knows. And the other movies have been billion-dollar babies. Do you think this is going to be a billion-dollar baby?
I mean, listen, I haven't seen it, so it's hard. See, that's what I always want to see the film because it changes so much.
Yeah.
Once you see, like, great example, Maverick, right? So the second I saw Maverick, and I saw it, 2 weeks before it opened, I said, this film is going to be massive. Like, not before you're just like, yeah, it'll make some money. I mean, did anyone really want a Top Gun sequel? And then you watch it and you go, oh my God, this is going to be a huge, colossal hit. And I need to see Little Mermaid. But based on the people that I know that have seen it and the general reaction to it, it doesn't sound like it's that next level, the word of mouth that comes out and says, you have to go see this. I don't think it has a Lion King kind of number at all on that, which is what, 1.6 billion worldwide, something like that for Lion King. I think it can get to 850. I don't think it can get to a billion. But again, it just depends. I need to see it. But I also listen, I have worries about Disney, the company, and something that a lot of people, certainly on film Twitter, don't ever discuss. There is a significant portion of the population in this country that is not happy with the agenda that Disney is pushing. Now, listen, we can disagree with it altogether. We can say we have no problem with it. That's fine. But there are people that do, and that's the reason why A Lightyear and A Strange World did not do very well. They both underperformed big time. In fact, Strange World, a huge bomb. That's not just about the film. That's about a segment of the population that goes to movies saying, I don't want to support this Disney film. And you can even take that into a little bit of Guardians 3. I feel like that's a bigger story than people want to, they want to admit. Because if you go on film Twitter, no one understands that. They don't get that. They live in their little bubble. But the truth is that is one of the factors of these films not hitting the numbers that they expect. So Little Mermaid could be affected by that. And if it is, then we could be looking at less than 800 million.
Well, the thing with Disney is that they are definitely like in a political conversation the way something like Universal isn't, Sony isn't, like some Paramount, like you never hear anything about any of that stuff when it refers to those studios. Like Universal's, nobody's talking about, well, what is Cocaine Bear saying? It's like Cocaine Bear is a bear on cocaine. I mean, that's what it is, right? Which is what entertainment should be. Not all bears on cocaine, but you know what I mean? But yeah, exactly. I do think there's an element, which we won't dive too much into, but there definitely is like a side to be chosen when it comes to that studio for a lot of people, as opposed to other studios.
Right. They've almost just become, and has nothing to do with casting or specifics of any of the movies. They right now are just a buzzword for a certain portion of the population that they're just railing against. And so their movies could get caught up in that. I mean, I tend to think, and I get what you're saying about film Twitter sort of wanting to pretend that stuff. I think with a kids movie, the whininess of kids will override any parent's political agenda. And I think if the kids want to see Little Mermaid enough, they will whine their way to the theater no matter how much their parents are politically opposed to the Walt Disney Company. But then again, that depends on, are the kids really going to want to see this movie? Is the movie good? I think, especially for a kids movie, that'll override things. Adults will make their choices based on a lot of factors. But I think if the kids really want to whine to see this movie, they'll get their parents to go see this movie.
And are these songs good?
Annoying.
I mean, that's the thing. Do these kids want to go and hear these songs multiple times? I mean, I think that's going to be a big thing too. And that's one of those things. You have to see it to see if these songs are any good. I mean, the way they're performed here, is there new ones, all that stuff, Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think this movie, there's going to be a narrative around it no matter what. And I think in the end, it'll make a ton of money. The $1 billion is almost with the China situation, is that even the barometer we should use anymore at this point?
Yeah.
But I think overall it's going to be a top 5 domestic of this summer, no matter what, unless it is very bad, which the early buzz on that seems like it will at least be fine.
It's not going to be Mulan. I mean, that's for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, Mulan
Right.
was one of those crazy
Or
situations.
Dumbo.
Yeah,
Right.
or Dumbo. Absolutely.
So Eric, I want to get what is your 1 or 2 picks for a big movie this summer that you think is going to massively underperform?
Barbie is, oh man, I'll tell you.
Wow.
Here's why I'm frightened of Barbie, is that it's not going to be for kids, because we listen, Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach are too heady for that. I mean, sure, there might be elements that will work for kids, but it's not a kids movie. And so you're asking adults to go see a Barbie movie, so it has to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a film that's dependent on it being, I would say, great to do very well at the box office. That film has potential to bomb. I feel it. I've talked to people who've seen the test screenings. They liked it. They didn't love it. And that's what I don't want to hear. I want to hear it's incredible. You have to see this film. It's so great what Noah and Greta did with this. But nope, I'm not hearing that. So that is troubling. And
Wow.
I think that it is in a very precarious position, and it's going to be dependent on audiences going along with her vision. And I'm not sure they're going to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Clayton, you could take it. You've been the pessimist on this show, on this movie up until now. So
Yeah, I mean, we have a saying on this show, tweets aren't ticks. So there's a lot of online buzz about this movie, and it could just be people who like the idea, like to make different posters, putting their friends in this is Barbie, who brunches or whatever. My take is exactly that, is that this seems to me like the old school way of adapting an IP. Like, this feels to me like the original Mario Brothers movie, in the sense of, like, we need to port this into something that is different than what it is, right? But again, Barbie is hard to adapt, because what is there about Barbie? She's a doll. She's just a girl in a world. And it's like, it's not like G.I. Joe, where the battles are going to happen, or Transformers, where it's like big robots. Barbie's hard to adapt. And this feels to be like they did the same thing with the Brady Bunch movie back in the day, which was a hit for its budget, but they're banking on the Barbie movie to be a tentpole. And yeah, I saw that trailer and I was like, this is like humor with innuendo. This is stuff that I don't feel like is going to get those little kids. I just don't see it.
I mean, I get listen, I agree. Something like Little Mermaid just has to be good enough, and kids are going to want to see it, and it's going to make, 500 million domestic, no problem. Barbie does have to be very, very good to hit that crazy expectation level, making 250 domestic, something like that. I guess as we stand right now, not having seen it, I'm still going to be of the faith that this will be that good, because it's Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig, and until I'm proved otherwise, that's just what I'm going to believe. I do think, though, the little kids are very excited about Barbie. This is potentially still the untapped G.I. Joe or Transformers for girls. And I think that even in the trailer that you might not love right now, little girls are just excited because Barbie is wearing the nice outfits and there's all these Kens. And I still think it's going to work. I don't think
excited
they're being
about Michael Cera. Like, kids are excited about Michael Cera, Ken. Like, that's what I'm saying, Pat. Like, it should just be Barbie and Ken. And then you can do the whole multiverse of Barbies and Kens later. I mean, are you seriously telling me that a kid's like, oh, cool, Michael Cera?
Listen, there's all kind of Kens out there. The little girls are used to there being various kinds of Kens.
Show me a Michael Cera-esque Ken doll. Listen, I like Michael Cera. I don't like to I'm not trying to target the young man because I like a lot of his work. But what I'm saying is that is what you know this about me. You know
I know you like Michael Cera. So
I
Eric,
like Michael Cera.
Very interesting. It is a bold pick of Barbie as the potential big bomb. Because the easy way would have been to go, I think we'd all otherwise say Transformers. I think that is the
Beast
safest
Wars
pick for the big budget bomb of the summer. And Barbie seems to be the one that everyone we're all hoping is going to break out and do well. But, it has to do it first and prove itself. So we'll see. Mm-hmm. So Eric, thank you for joining us. Where can our listeners find you on the dial? Where on the dial are you?
On YouTube, just search Midnight Movie Talk, and you'll see the channel pop up, and we're live every Sunday night, and then, whenever I feel like it during the week, usually after seeing a film. Going to see a film tomorrow, Theater Camp. Finally, that was a Sundance film that they're finally releasing here, Searchlight is. So, yeah, whenever we see a film, we do it during the week. Otherwise, Sunday night, box office recap, and the channel's going great, and it's fun, and a lot of really smart subscribers and viewers, and that I appreciate.
All right.
And you truly you fucking do it live. You're live streaming.
That's right.
You're full on fuck it. We're doing it live.
100%. It's just, listen, I used to do morning news. So I was a morning news anchor, if you guys can believe it. Put me in a tie, get rid of the goatee, and I used to do and it was always live. We didn't tape anything. So I'm so used to just going, let's just shoot. Like tonight, they said, come on, let's go. I don't want to overthink it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but I don't care. It's just, let's just do it live, and then we put it to bed.
Right, right.
That's what we do.
You're out there, you're taking calls, you're taking super chats, you're out there bringing up trailers and stuff. Very, very exciting, fast-paced YouTube show. So check out Midnight Movie Talk, of course. For us, email us, theboboyspodcast @gmail.com. We love getting your emails. Follow us on social @theboboyspod. We, of course, are also YouTubers. So like and subscribe. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Smash, smash, smash. And I think, and of course, give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. That's the only platform that matters. And Clayton, I think we've done it.
We did it. Let's do a fast one this time, Pat.
All right.
There's just nothing left to say except for
until next time, we'll smell you at the box office. Nailed it.